1, Niner, 4, 3, touch.
Get in position and wait for my go.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Erkley and welcome to another edition of the PE Crime Blotter, a weekly look at crime here in the Inland Empire. We begin with crime headlines. The body of Brittany Kilgore, a 22-year-old Marine wife from Fallbrook who disappeared earlier this month under mysterious circumstances, was found last week along a road near Lake Skinner, east of Temecula. Another Fallbrook woman has pleaded not guilty to murder in connection with her death. San Diego County authorities say a Camp Pendleton Marine named as a person of interest last week has now been arrested on suspicion of murder. Kilgore had recently filed for divorce from her husband, who was deployed to Iraq and is not a suspect in her killing. Relatives and neighbors of Deborah Marie Clark are baffled as to why the 48-year-old developmentally disabled woman was arrested Friday on suspicion of murder and arson after her 75-year-old father died and her 73-year-old mother was injured in a fire in Riverside. They say Clark has the intellect of a 6-year-old and wouldn't understand that setting a fire is dangerous. They say she is capable of going shopping and taking care of her parents, however. Police haven't said what evidence they have against Clark, who on Tuesday was charged with murder. A 94-year-old woman has moved out of state with her family after being robbed of jewelry and other belongings by an intruder who left her tied up in her San Bernardino home. Frances South wasn't hurt during Saturday's break-in, but she was living alone, and it took her hours to free herself and alert neighbors to what had happened. A Temecula Valley High School sophomore was arrested last Friday after authorities say he was showing off an unloaded pistol he brought to school. Sheriff's officials said the teen took the gun and 2 bullets from his stepfather without permission. The school principal wrote in a letter to parents that the teen brought the gun to intimidate another student with whom he had argued over a girl. FBI agents arrested a man last week on charges of attempting to kidnap at least 3 San Jacinto girls. The FBI's Inland Regional Apprehension Team located 33-year-old Kareem Lewis last Tuesday in San Bernardino. A warrant was issued for Lewis in February, charging him with 3 felony accounts of attempted kidnapping, 3 felony accounts of communicating with a minor with intent to commit lewd acts with a child, and 3 misdemeanor counts of annoying a child. Well, that does it for this week's crime headlines. Coming up next on the docket. It's now time for our On the Docket segment. We're taking a look at the big court cases here in Riverside and San Bernardino County. Joining me now, as always, Press Enterprise's Rich Diatley. Rich, our first guy, Jesus Javier Gomez, wanted for a death in a street racing crash here in Riverside.
Right. He's been charged with DUI and gross vehicular manslaughter. Police said this race in March was going on about 120 miles an hour when there was an accident. An 18-year-old in the car with Gomez died as a result.
Then Betty Lynette Dahl, a bookkeeper from Corona, charged with embezzling $1.6 million.
Right. Her employer noticed some discrepancies, eventually contacted the police. She went missing for a while, was found, and now she faces these charges.
And finally, Janelle Ramirez, a teacher from Hemet, charged with having sex with an underage student.
Right. She faces arraignment later this week. The student involved, a 17-year-old boy, told investigators that she told him he reminded her of Taylor Lautner from the Twilight movie series.
Interesting. All right, Rich, be sure to keep us updated on any developments in any of those cases. That does it for this week's On the Docket segment. Coming up next, Most Wanted. It is now time for the return of our Most Wanted segment. It's been gone for a few weeks, but due to high demand, it is back, and back with the man behind all the madness is John Asbury, the Press Enterprise's very own. John, our first guy is Roberto Saucedo Camacho from Moreno Valley.
Right. Camacho is one of 4 people who were wanted in a 2010 shooting on Atwood Avenue in Moreno Valley. Police said he jumped out of a pickup and fired, striking one man in the face and the other man in the arm.
Our next guy is Heriberto Anthony Leva from San Jacinto.
Right. Leva was spotted on surveillance camera in the Saboba casino talking to a man. Authorities said he left the casino briefly and then came back and then started repeatedly stabbing the man he was talking to. After the incident, the man said that he was upset with him because he was there with his former girlfriend.
And finally, Jose De Jesus Godinez from Cathedral City.
Right, he's wanted in a 2008 sexual assault A woman was found sexually assaulted and beaten severely in the face. And then a couple of years ago, authorities got a DNA hit that matched him back to the case.
And if anyone has any type of information on any of these guys, where can they call?
Authorities are asking everyone with information to call 855-21-CATCH.
All right, John, thanks for joining us. That does it for our Most Wanted segment. Coming up next, In Depth. It is now time for our In-Depth segment. We're discussing a fatal fire that happened right here in Riverside early Friday morning. A mentally disabled woman was arrested and has now been charged with arson after her father died in the fire and her mother was seriously injured. I'm joined now by the Press Enterprise's Brian Rokas. Brian, tell us a little bit more.
Well, on Friday morning, the fire department went out to Sheridan Court where there was a house on fire. They took out Harley Clark and his wife Linda. Mr. Clark perished. Mrs. Clark, they took her to the hospital and she's improving. The daughter who lives there, Deborah Clark, she's developmentally disabled. She was nowhere to be found, but a few hours later she showed back up at the house and they arrested her.
And she, as of this morning, has been charged with murder.
Right, she's going to be arraigned at 1:30 p.m. Tuesday in Superior Court in Riverside. The charges are murder, arson, and elder abuse, accounting for the injuries to her mother. And kind of an interesting aspect to the case is that her brothers and neighbors say that she has the mental acuity of a 6-year-old. She is able to go shopping to a small neighborhood market on her own, but they say that she wouldn't know what danger fire poses.
Now, how could that factor issue into how this case plays out?
Well, her attorney could no doubt ask for a competency hearing to see if she's competent to stand trial, meaning does she understand the proceedings? Is she able to assist in her own defense? The thing I'm still waiting for is to hear from the police as to what evidence they have against her. We haven't heard a thing. It might be that they found something that specifically ties her to intentionally trying to kill her parents. The neighbors worry that the police talked this woman into a confession. We don't know.
All right, Brian, very interesting story. Should have some pretty good developments coming up. Be sure to keep us updated on that. Thanks for joining us. That does it for this week's In-Depth segment and also wraps up this week's PE Crime Blotter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.